Hi everyone, and welcome to this quick video that gives some general overview about how to teach literature to enriched English second language and sometimes ordinary English second language classes. Okay, so just to start, I've taught literature to different groups in all different kinds of ways, and there are several different ways you can do this to approach. So we're going to cover the following ways to do it. The first one is to teach literature through short stories. Looking at class novels and also individual novels. So letting students choose their own novels to read. So, as I said, I've taught this a lot with English second language classes, and I think one of the best places to start, especially if you've never done it before, is to start teaching literature through short stories. They're a great place to begin because, first of all, of course, they're not too long, so it gives you a lot of flexibility if you find that the topic isn't meant necessarily as engaging, or you're struggling a bit, or your students are having a hard time, you can always switch it up pretty quickly. And it's not so daunting if you give them a short story as compared to a novel. The great thing about short stories, too, is they really have the same kind of literary aspects. So you can really introduce them to things like setting and characterization, figurative language, all the great stuff that you can do with novels. You can also do with short stories. Yeah, they take up about 1 to 2 classes for stories per story. So where I would recommend you start, there are a lot of textbooks out there that are created for teachers, like this one over here on the left, Scholastic Scope literature. This is how I started teaching literature to my secondary 3 students, through this great textbook. So it's collected a collection of different short stories, and they also have built-in activities, so it takes a lot of the pain out of it. I've also posted some pictures of a couple of my other favorite authors. Shirley Jackson is an amazing short story author. Roald Dahl, believe it or not, yes, he wrote lots of children's books, but he also wrote some fantastic short stories. If you like science fiction, Isaac Asimov has short stories that are almost, I don't know, 1 page, 2 page, so short, but really interesting science fiction stories. Once you get used to teaching literature with short stories, you can also use them between novels and between other units to kind of break things up. So they're really flexible. And they can be connected as well. So, for example, one of the easiest connections to make is with Shirley Jackson's The Lottery to Suzanne Collins's The Hunger Games. It's a great way to introduce those. So this is an example of the kind of thing you might find in a teacher's guide collection. This is one that I put together earlier in my former career. It's a short story called Death by Scrabble. And you can see these are the activities that the students do beforehand, reading about what Scrabble is and activating some vocabulary by using Scrabble. While they're reading, there are activities for them to do. And after reading, the questions are already there for you. So you can pick and choose which ones you want to answer with your students. The pain is kind of taken out of it. Another way I've approached literature in the classroom is by having a Scholastic Scope magazine, and these were amazing. So the kids paid, I think it was $10, $15 a year. So instead of buying a textbook, we bought a subscription to Scholastic Scope. And every month or so, we got a new magazine. So the great thing about this is that the topics are up to date, they're modern, they're current, they're relevant. The kids absolutely loved them. And I don't exaggerate when I say that. I would put the pile, once I got the subscription in for the day, I would bring it to the class and I'd have it at the front of the class and they would get really excited and go through it. And I used back copies sometimes just for extensive reading activities later on. So they would flip through them and choose the ones they thought looked best. So they really do like the format and engage with them. Each one comes with stories to read aloud. So there's usually a reader's theater activity in there. There are online activities and videos. Teacher's guide is incredible. There's always a grammar focus and vocabulary that's taught. So again, the pain of this is kind of taken out of it for you. It's really great. Another thing I had a lot of success with is giving students individual novels. So once or twice a year, they would get to choose which novel they wanted to read in class. And this is also known as kind of extensive reading. So they choose what novel they want to read. I like to do it this way. I like to give them total free choice because I really saw how it made differentiation happen in my classroom. In one class, I would have, a student reading Garfield, and in the same group, I would have someone else reading Animal Farm as a choice, or Lord of the Rings. So kids are at all different levels, and letting them choose allows them to pick the topic they're interested in, and also they self-select for difficulty. The other way you can do it is give them a pool of books to choose from, and that gives you a little bit more control. You know what the stories are, the characters, and you can sort of select the genre. So when it comes to testing their understanding, you have already read the books, which is fun too. The key to doing this successfully is to make sure you have a deliverable. And a deliverable just means that they have to do a specific task within a given time. And I would set this up in class by giving them time in class to read very nearly every class. I like to do this at the start of the class. When they came in, they would sit down and bring out their novel and they would get to read for 10, 15 minutes or so. And it really just was a nice way to calm the energy level down and get them focused and thinking in English. So we did this, and they were well aware that they had to complete their reading by a specific date. And then they demonstrated their understanding and engagement with the novel by, again, self-selecting if they wanted to do a project or a test or whatever. I would give them all different ones. If you're not sure what to do to get them to reinvest their understanding or show that they've understood their novel, there's a really great article called 50 Alternatives to the Book Report, and I've posted it on our course website, but you can also find it just by Googling 50 Alternatives to the Book Report, and you'll find it on readwritethink.org, which is a fantastic website for teachers and resources. Okay, as we all know, a lot of our classrooms have more and more students with special needs and learning disabilities. In fact, my son has one of these. He has issues with reading and coding. So as much as he loves to read, he's a really slow reader and struggles sometimes because he doesn't read the word properly. So one of the things that we've been doing at home, and a great strategy for teachers in the classroom, is to encourage kids, all kids, to use audiobooks. So they can listen to the audiobook and read along in their novel, or they can just listen to the audiobook at home. And then when they come into class and read, it will help them understand what they're reading even more. If you have a look, this is a fantastic infographic that I found. And it's on the left, and it talks about some of the different facts here. So I encourage you, if you're going to teach books in your class, to see if there's an audiobook that accompanies it. And it's a great way, as I say, to support your students in the class. Yeah, take a minute and have a look at this infographic and see if it helps convince you. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about teaching a novel with a class. So this is your classic everybody reads the same novel kind of approach. Before we get into that too deeply, I want to talk a little bit about graded readers. So graded readers are put out by companies like Oxford or Penguin or Scholastic, and they take some of the classics, but also some modern novels, and they adapt the vocabulary and syntax by level. So they really look at frequency levels and syntax, and they've got experts writing these and making sure that the vocabulary will be appropriate for everyone, and that the readers, even in an ESL classroom, will have a chance to really understand some of the topics and get into the stories without being too challenged by some of the high-level language skills needed. Yeah, I right, so Oxford, Penguin, Scholastic, right. The other great thing about graded readers is that they come with amazing teacher resources and guides. So again, a lot of the pain is taken out of teaching it for you, because the guides will tell you what to teach, how to teach, when to teach it, give you extra resources online, physical copies. They're really great. I've had success with those too. Yeah, this is a screenshot. I think it's from Oxford, to show you exactly how they manage to calibrate the vocabulary and syntax. So they start with like starter ones. These are typical sentences, some of the grammar structures. the amount of words, stage 2, stage 3. So you can see how they develop all the way through. So you can move through as a class. And again, this can be used as your class novel, or you can get students to choose from this as a pool. All right, so let's say we're going to move beyond the graded readers and short stories and audiobooks and all that. How do you choose a novel to work with as a class? Well, select one that interests students, that brings them a little bit outside their comfort zone. So this is, something that they wouldn't pick up necessarily on their own. This is kind of your job as a teacher, is to broaden their horizons and to engage their critical thinking about experiences in other times, other places, for other people. Get them thinking beyond the walls of their own classroom. A lot of the timeless novels are taught, and you can tell that they're timeless if the ideas that were written at the time are still relevant today. And we all know lots of those. I had a lot of success, for example, with things like Brave New World or 1984. Yeah, you can also explore genre. I love this sort of periodic table of the genres. You can explore genres and literary devices, use novels to help enrich vocabulary, discuss character and world issues. So there's more to come in other videos. So another one, I'm going to talk about where to find resources. And although I didn't mention this earlier when selecting a novel, one of my teacher tips, sneaky sneaky, is if you can, select a novel that has a ton of teacher resources already prepared for you. But we'll talk more about that later. I'll put together a video that talks about how you can plan to teach novels and talking about the response process. So how to start not just asking questions about what color is the dog, but a little bit deeper response to get the critical thinking going. And that's it. Thanks very much.